right, now let's take a look at writing linear equations if you're given 2 points. So remember the goal of writing a linear equation into y equals mx plus b form is that you need a slope and you need a beginning point. If you have a slope and you have a beginning point, you can turn anything into y equals mx plus b. So last time we looked at point slope formula if we had 1 point, but now we have 2 points. So this is just this 2-step problem. Well, that's it. It's just a 2-step problem. So the first order that you need to do is, number 1, find the slope. So remember your slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. After you find the slope, then that gives me half my problem. Now you just need to find the beginning point, which we did last video. And what did we do? We used y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, or we just use y equals mx plus b to plug in values and to give me a b. I don't care which way, I just want you to do it right. So let's take a look at number 1. Remember, my goal is to get a slope and my goal is to get a beginning point. So I'm going to start with finding the slope. So my slope, remember, x1, y1, x2, y2, -1 minus 7, -1 minus 7 over 1 minus a -3. So when I simplify this out, I get -8 over 1 minus a negative is positive. 1 plus 3 is 4, which reduces to the slope of -2. Remember, slope has to be reduced or you don't get full credit. So now my slope is -2. Well, then I just need to find my beginning point. Here's the deal. It doesn't matter if I use this point. It doesn't matter if I use this point. I just need to use a point to solve it. I always choose the points that are like, lower numbers that I don't have to work a lot with. So I'm going to choose this point. And I'm going to use my y equals mx plus b because that's what I'm used to. So my y is -1. My slope I just found was -2. That x value is 1. And I'm going to solve for b. So -1 equals -2 plus b. I add 2 to both sides, and b equals 1. Now that I have my beginning point, now that I have my slope, I can plug it into y equals mx plus b, and my slope is -2x, my beginning point is +1, and that's my linear equation. So let's do it using the formula. All right, so step 1, if you have 2 points, step 1 is we're going to find a slope because remember the goal is to find an m value and a b value. Once I find an m and a b value, golden. I can just plug it in. So to find my slope, it's y2 minus y1. Be careful of that negative. So -4 minus a -7 over 3 minus a -6. When I simplify this, this becomes a positive, and I get -4 plus 7, which is 3. This becomes a positive. 3 plus 6 is 9. And don't forget, slope you always reduce, and that's 1/3. So my slope is 1/3. I'm halfway there. I just need to find the beginning point. We'll use the formula on this one. So let's say I want to use the formula. Does it matter which point I use? No, it doesn't matter. Since I used the second point over here, I'm going to show you how to use it with the first point. So here's my first point. I'm going to use my formula, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And I plug in values. Y minus my y1 is negative. So remember, minus and negative is +7 equals my slope I just found was 1/3. X stays the same, minus a -6. So this becomes positive. And now I distribute and solve. Y plus 7 equals 1/3 times x. 1/3 times 6 is 2. And to get y by itself, I subtract 7. And my final answer is y equals 1/3 x minus 5. So I have my slope. I have my beginning point was -7. And the point slope formula allows me to solve it all at one time. Okay? All right, let's look over here on the last page. Let's do 2 more. Let's do 12 and 14. Okay, so step 1 is always, if we have 2 points, we're going to find the slope. So the slope, remember, is y2, which is negative 5, minus y1, which is a negative 2, over 1 minus a negative 2. Minus a negative, so that top becomes positive. Minus a negative, this becomes positive. Negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3. 1 plus 2 is 3. And when I reduce, I get it's equal to negative 1. So I'm halfway there. My slope is negative 1. All I need to do is find that beginning point. On this one, I'm going to use what I already know. So I'm going to use y equals mx plus b. So my y value is negative 2. My slope we just found is negative 1. My x value is negative 2. And that allows me to solve for b. So when I simplify, negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2. To get b by itself, I subtract 2 on both sides. And b equals negative 4. So now I have my slope. Now I have my beginning point. Now I'm able to turn it into y equals negative x minus 4. Remember, you could put negative 1, but that's not simplified. So y equals negative x minus 4. Okay? All right, let's do number 14. So step 1 is to find your slope. Remember, the goal is slope and y-intercept. So slope, I'm going to use my formula, y2 minus y1, so negative 1 minus 14 over 2 minus a negative 3. When you have minus a negative 3, when we simplify, this becomes positive. So slope, when I simplify it out, is negative 15 over 5, which reduces to negative 3. Perfect. Slope is negative 3. I'm halfway there to my problem. Now let's use the formula. And again, it doesn't matter which point we use, so I'm just going to use this point right here. So I have y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And I'm just going to plug in values using this point. So y minus y1, be careful, minus a negative becomes positive 1, equals, my slope is negative 3, and then I get x minus 2. At this point, we distribute and we simplify. So y plus 1 equals negative 3x, and a negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6. To get y by itself, I subtract 1 on both sides, and I get y equals negative 3x plus 5. So either way you do it is fine. Just make sure you get that slope-intercept form. If you have questions, come see me in tutoring.